Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Being Your Own CEO. This is a success circle intended for solopreneurs. And we get together because we enjoy each other's company. We love experimenting and sharing each other's knowledge and and information. And this morning we are just a little bit late because we were chatting about the fire situation in California, and it seems as though our systems are kind of a little bit wonky this morning, and we've been speculating that it might just be that. So my name is Lowell Ann, and I help solopreneurs with their focus and being a little more successful and a little more productive. And I've been doing that through coaching and consulting for a lot of years. Let's just put it that way. So I welcome those that might be interested and who are watching this, who might like to go to lowelland.com and see what else there is there. You'll find a number of useful things. So now let's turn to the members of the green room this morning. And let's see, I think, Roland, you are the first one here. Are you ready to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Roland, and who and what I am is really not a consequence today. I'm just dealing with what's going on with the fires in California. My family is safe and sound, but I do know some people who have been threatened by the fire, had to evacuate, but it seems like everybody I know is pretty safe. Barbara Quick had a fire close to her place, and Aaron. Yeah, but Aaron in Stroke TV and his family had to evacuate, but they're apparently back in their building, and everybody I know is safe, but that does not apply to thousands of people. So we're prayers and positive energy going out to that.
Yes, I echo that. That's it's just what's going on with this planet is my question. So thanks for being here, Roland, and thank you for your music technology support. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, as primitive as it is.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't think it's primitive. I think it's kind of fun. Anyway, so Fred, how about you? I know that you are in a different part of BC today.
Yeah, I'm Fred Jones today. I'm in White Rock, British Columbia, just north of Bellingham, Washington State. And I'm dog sitting, house sitting someone's while he's away in Whistler, of all places. Anyway, I'm involved with coaching young people with ourfutureleaders.ca and helping them with their self-confidence and communication and leadership skills. And I really feel for the people in California. That's really devastating. Having seen what happened in British Columbia earlier this year, this seems even, even worse, and we had it bad. So, I mean, it said at least 11 people had died in California, and a lot of missing people. So really, it's sad to hear.
Absolutely. And I must say, we were saying this earlier, Roland was sort of thinking that the systems are not working very well. Yesterday, my systems were really wonky yesterday. So that may be the reason. Anyway, our thoughts go out.
Yeah,
Certainly.
for sure.
Yeah. So Elena, how about you? I think you were next.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Alana Birmingham, coming to you from Ireland, and my website is emptynester.blog.com, where I assist people who want to learn how to make money online after their children leave the nest. I'm also a virtual assistant part-time, so that's me. Happy to be here.
And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do the Irish celebrate any kind of a Thanksgiving or a thanks for a good harvest or any of that stuff, or is that totally a North American thing?
Well, they usually celebrate it March 17th every year.
March 17th. Well, that's not the harvest then.
It's Patty's Day.
That's St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, right, of course.
So to answer your question, no, there is no Thanksgiving like that here, because I guess nothing like that really happened here. There was a potato famine and, you know, the overtaking by the English or whatever. So, yeah, I think no, there's nothing like that here.
Well, I think in many countries there are celebrations in and around thanks for the harvest.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't have anything like that here. They do have a holiday. There's a week off around Halloween, and that's when the time changes. So we fall back an hour right around Halloween, and it's usually the weekend before Halloween. So yeah, we all get a week off here, like not everybody, but like schools that are closed for a week around that time. So yeah, so that's probably the closest we get to any kind of a Thanksgiving type thing.
Right
it's
on.
not really Thanksgiving.
I did a bunch of research online about trying to figure out what is the Canadian history behind Thanksgiving, and I found some quite interesting information. It's a little bit different from the U.S. concept. I mean, there was the Pilgrim Fathers that were giving thanks for having escaped the persecution that they had, and I think in the Canadian sense, it has more roots in what was going on in Britain. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But also what I found online is that there's a fairly strong connection to Indigenous history, the First Nations and Native Americans. So there's quite a sense of Thanksgiving for harvest and well-being, etc. that comes out of there as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So welcome here.
Glad
you could make it. Now, Jay, what about you? How did you spend Thanksgiving?
Well, you know, the usual family cooking, turkey sandwiches today, blended turkey tomorrow,
Yeah.
turkey protein shakes.
Leftover
Giving
turkey
thanks to
yeah.
Giving thanks to the food scrap program the next couple days. Right? Yeah. So anyways, hi, my name is Jay. My company is Magi Studios, and we help people get started in the world of online marketing through coach consulting and training, hailing from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
Right on. So welcome here. And before I tell you a funny story, I want to acknowledge that Vivek, our friend Vivek, is in the on the VCP page, and Heidi Hornline is also. So I'm very happy that they're there, and I'm not going to try to read what they're saying and sort of guide the conversation. So we'll just have to acknowledge that they're there and know that, and thank them for being there. So, but I did promise, or it was suggested by Vivek this morning, because he and I were texting earlier about my acquisition of the home gizmo. So I've been, it came bundled, believe it or not, with my Google Pixel phone. And it sat on the sideboard here for quite a while until I watched something that the big announcements from Google, all the things that are happening and the new directions that they're taking. And I went, well, I guess I better plug that silly thing in and see if I can figure out how to make it work. And so I put it in the kitchen, but the idea that when I'm in the kitchen working, if the microwave is going or water's running or whatever, I can't hear my radio that's coming from my computer in the other room. And I am reluctant to turn my radio up too loud because I know it would disturb my neighbors. So I thought, well, this might be a use for this Google Home thing. It's a little gizmo about this high, and it has a speaker, and it connects up with all your devices. You can have it connect to your phone and your tablet and your TV and all of that. Anyway, so in the process of getting this rolling, and there's certain parts of it I still haven't got going, but I spoke to Miss Google. I guess you know what phrase I mean. I spoke to Miss Google and asked her to go and find CBC Radio. And here's the reply I got. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that yet. I'm still learning. I thought I couldn't believe it. And I thought, now, I wonder if that is Miss Google telling me it's my job to teach her, or whether it's Google's job to teach her. So the question is up in the air. Anyway, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, wow.
I can actually answer that for you.
Can you? Go ahead.
So yeah, excuse me. So since you asked that question and it doesn't have a response, it goes into a kind of like a database or a data bank, which they will then add to like a research, and they'll figure out the answer. And then in the near future, so it's like you're training Google by asking common questions that are being put into a database. So there's going to be other people asking the same questions, so that goes into a data bank, and then eventually they'll say, do you mean radio 1 or radio 2?
Which if you're Canadian, you would understand that, but if you don't listen to Canadian radio, CBC, you wouldn't get what that means, but I get it. Well, and so this is all part of the new direction that came out from Google, in terms of now they're pretty sure they've got the whole mobile thing working the way they want it to, and so now it's moving toward this AI, this being this artificial intelligence, and I guess that just is an accumulated thing. Yeah, so, but anyway, I thought it was hilarious when it happened. So I still have a few things that I need to get going. I have parts of it going, but haven't got everything rolling yet. So Anyway, so that's a diversion. And I think maybe we should get to our main topic of conversation this morning, which we had decided would be the psychology of pricing. And in the VCP page, I posted the question, and I put it on Google Plus. What's the difference between $97 and $100? Oh, Roland has posted a comment. Thank you, Roland. This is by Vivek. I would never estimate the power of something given free. Linux, the operating system is given away free, but is it worthless? Look at all the pervasiveness of this free OS now. Your TV, your phone, your latest gadget, all run this OS operating system. It is free as in air, but becoming very essential for all digital things these days.
And if I could interject, he said, I would never underestimate the power of something free.
Oh, did I read that? Did I misread that?
Yeah. You just missed the under.
Okay. I saw the never was capitalized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, this whole thing about, we've been talking about value versus price and all kinds of things over the last few sessions. And we did sort of come to the conclusion that using the word free was not a very good idea, that it can bring about conclusions about the value or lack of. So I guess we can call things items of no charge or whatever we want to call them. But this whole conversation about price has certainly brought us around to this whole idea. So how do you price, and what kind of a message do we put on the price that is chosen? So what is the difference between pricing something at $97 and $100? Now, in my own recollection, there's kind of an underlying, I guess you would call it a psychology. If it's over $100, it feels like it's way too expensive. But if it's under $100, it feels like it's doable. So is that what you meant, Jay, last week when you said it would be really interesting to explore the psychology of pricing? What happens? I guess it's about what assumptions we make.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think when it comes to the pricing of something, whether it be $97 or $100, $100 is 3 digits, 97 is 2. So there's the first psychology point right there, is the reduced amount of digits within that value. And that plays a huge role in the psychology of pricing. Also, the reason why a lot of people do 97 instead of 99 is because it seems farther away from 100, right? Or 9, you know. So people even see that as a bigger value, right? 97 to only $97, right? So because a lot of people go, oh, $99. Oh, they tend to round it up to, oh, that's $100. Whereas someone says, or if it's a price listed as 97, it's more rare that they say, oh, that's $100, because there's, you know, it's a farther distance between $100. I mean, like, it makes absolutely no sense, you know, from mathematically, but psychologically, people assume they say it's 97 as opposed to $100. Whereas if it's 99, people still see that it's a deal, but it's farther from 100. So, and that goes with hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. It's the same kind of pricing.
Do you think that it got moved down to 97 recently as a result of the fact that, at least in Canada, we don't have pennies anymore? And so when you're buying something in the store, depending on what the price set, it gets rounded up or rounded down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think the price changed based on the penny, but because I think it existed prior to us eliminating the penny, which is what, 2 years ago? Yeah. So I mean, for those of you who are familiar with our Canadian monetary system, we no longer have the penny. So if something costs, it's kind of weird, because if something costs 97 cents, it'll be $1. You have to pay $1. That's the actual price that you have to pay with cash. Unless you pay with debit or credit card, then it remains at that price.
Mm-hmm.
So we've eliminated the physical penny in Canada, they round up or round down based on the cent value of the product that you're purchasing. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. it's ridiculous. And the reason why they eliminated it, because it cost more to produce than the actual value of the penny.
Yes, copper was, because our pennies were coppers.
Yep. I think they should go back to wood.
We've got lots of that here in BC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Or we used to. I don't know. We've got an awful lot less right now.
Yeah,
but
well, yeah, exactly. So, but I think, that's in its premise. The 97 factor is the reason why people tend to gravitate towards buying something that's $97 versus $99 or straight up $100. It's the reduction of the one digit, and also the 7 seems farther away from the 100 mark. So,
but I also noticed, as you were defining that, you were using the word only.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So where does that take us? Only. I mean, it's only.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's obviously a psychological element as well, where you are, I guess, kind of putting a subliminal suggestion that it's not a lot of money. It's only, and I think subtly it's something to say that we're less expensive than our competitors, or your investment isn't going to be that much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was really coined or really popularized by infomercials. You pay only 3 payments of $49.97.
97. So what other kinds of, you mentioned that there is kind of a subliminal thing that goes on there. And I guess what goes through my mind is maybe affordability. Somewhere along the way in my upbringing and past economic times, maybe anything like $100 was thought to be a lot of money. In today's world, it's not very much money, but I mean, those messages that we got as children stay with us, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I remember I learned from several leaders in my industry, and I've heard this time and time again, is that your price needs to be forgettable. And what that means is that the pricing can't be waffled over, right? So, if you have a product, whether it be a digital or a physical product, there's so much perceived value in the product, that since the price is, 97, 47, whatever, you want that product because you have that perception of great value. So you have that perception of the price is oh, it's only $47. That's great. I can just go ahead and buy it, right? Versus, well, you know, it's X amount. I don't know. Like, I need to be convinced more. So, and it's under $100 is that forgettable price point, you know. So if you have a product or a service, even if it's a gateway type service where, you know, it's a low barrier entry type of service, having something that's, you know, 79 or 49 or something within that between, you know, the $47 and $97 mark, it's forgettable, meaning people are just willing to go ahead and pay that because, as you said, $100 these days isn't as much as it, no. The value isn't as much as what it used to be, right? So, and I think that really works, especially with the digital product world, right? Is having something that's forgettable. The price is forgettable because there's so much value.
And the phrase that comes up for me when you say that is, oh, well, I mean, if something's on there for, say, $49, the phrase that I often hear going through my head is, well, it's less than $50. What can I lose?
Exactly.
So exactly. That phrase, what can I lose, goes along with it. So it's really, wow.
Yeah, and people tend to associate what they normally spend $47 or $50 on. Yeah. And then they go, okay, well, that's, you know, a week's worth of fancy pants lattes, right? Or maybe 2 days worth, I don't know. Right? So they kind of go, oh, okay, all right, 47, well, I'll give it a whirl. So exactly. Yeah, I think that's a you know, having that forgettable price point is I think really important. And I think it's a really great way to, it's a really good gateway and a low barrier entry if you decide to start having a service-based model, or see if, you know, as a small business and solopreneurs, you know, and anyone listening, if you have a product that is, or a service that's more in the hundreds of dollars range, see if you can come up with a really low barrier product or service that is that forgettable price point, because that is that barrier to entry where people are willing to at least invest X amount of dollars to try out that product or service. Whereas then they become a customer at that low dollar value, and then you can then upsell them down the road a little bit. You know, I wouldn't recommend right away, but, you know, let them test the product out first, and then provide another opportunity for them to invest in something, your flagship type of product. So,
okay, upselling after testing. Testing is really what you're saying, yeah. So, what about the rest of the group? What comes into play when you look at the price of something? What sort of psychological things come into play?
I'm worried about Roland. Roland was waving his hand earlier on, and now he's only seeing his picture. I think he wanted to say something. Roland, are you still there? Do you want to say something?
He did tell me initially that he was going to be preoccupied, so.
Yeah, I am preoccupied, but sorry, hang on. The concept of the 97 or the 47 is less conclusive in the psychology, because when you say 99, it's like you're counting, and you go 99, 100. It leads to 100 automatically. But when you say 47, it doesn't necessarily push you to a psychological. So I'm going to quit talking until I clear my throat.
Oh, that's a piece I hadn't thought of. When you're counting, it's right next to it. That's really interesting.
The whole thing is impressionism, as far as I'm concerned, and the 47 is deceptive to me as a marketer. I know why they do it, but psychologically, it urges people to think that they're getting a better deal when it's a bunch of bullshit. We're talking about a couple dollars. It's still $100, or it's still 50 or whatever. But psychologically, it's easier to make the decision. So from a selling point, it's basically something that tips the scale when people are not quite decisive about the the sale. And my selling point for myself has always been, I'm $100 or I'm $500 or I'm $1,000. No matter how I tell you, that's what it's going to cost you. And I need people to understand my value so that if they want to spend $1,000, they're going to spend $1,000, knowing what they're getting and knowing what they're spending and wanting to do it. So that's my take on that.
Well, so you have quite a good bullshit meter, it sounds like.
It actually works against me sometimes, but for my own integrity, I'd rather lose a few sales than have people think that they're getting something out of me and not understanding the value. It's more important for people to refer me and say, he's worth every cent, pay the grand. But that's my point of view. But I understand from a selling point of view, the price tag on something on a shelf or as something you're promoting, 97 or whatever 7, the numbers just sell better. The results are very, very much on the favor of ROI.
Right. So, yeah. But I personally, I look at bigger chunks, like probably more $50 chunks. So I don't know. So what about you, Fred? How do you react to price? What goes on in your mind?
Well, a lot of interesting items came up as you and Jay were talking. For example, the under $50, the $49, $47. I think that's very true. And people will have this product and say, oh, okay, what have I got to lose? That's a price maybe of a meal for 2 out, and I can afford that, and I've got not much to lose. So that, I think, is very relevant. In fact, recently I've seen an organization selling exactly what he said, $49, and you'll get this information. But a little bit different to what he said. Immediately, if you sign up for that 49, they're saying, oh, here's a chance you could get this great program special just for you if you decide to go for the $200 and something, $249, and you get a lifetime and save all this money immediately as you sign up for the 49. They were doing that, and they do it throughout their whole operation. It's in the financial advice area, so they're trying to tell you where to invest your money. But for 49, you'll get this great idea. They sell you that, and immediately. So they didn't wait the few days or weeks to prove it. If they got you now for that 49, they figure, hey, maybe we could push them to the 200 and something version. So that's one technique that I see is being used recently.
Well,
recently.
Amazon uses that. If you go into Amazon and you're looking for a product of some sort, it pops right up and says, well, you can get this with free shipping if you do it right now.
Yeah, that sort of thing, exactly. And they know, hey, you're in the buying mode. You've already made that decision. Well, maybe all right, so we got you to the 47 or 49. Oh, okay, but we'll offer you all this other free stuff. Maybe you'll go right now. They know that. That's the psychology as well of that. So that's one thing that came up. The $100 is a lot, as you said, I'm an old guy. $100 in the 60s was a fortune. I now look at that and say, it's probably worth $10 now. What we had to pay. Yeah, well, I look at a burger. It was 19 cents was the cheapest burger. So I'd say, okay, 10 times the price today. The cheapest burger would probably be $1.90. I don't know what they are at McDonald's. I don't. But you probably can get the cheapest plain burger for $1.90. And I just look at that. Or a milkshake was 25 cents, and now the cheapest milkshake is probably $2.50. And then we go to the other side of expense. That you just triggered another thought. I was recently listening to a podcast, it's called Startup, but they were talking to a fella who his family is involved in coffee in Yemen, of all places. And his family, grandparents and parents were involved in the coffee. I didn't know they had coffee in Yemen, but it was very interesting because he was in the States going to university, and ultimately, he realized that he might have some opportunity to bring coffee in, and he went to went back to Yemen, and it's a war zone, or was a war zone, probably still is. And so not easy to get coffee from Yemen, but he managed to get some coffee from his connections there. And then there was a big coffee show in Seattle, and he had samples of the coffee, and then they tested the coffee. Some organization, something Blue something, it's a coffee organization that sells coffee in the States. Roland might know of it. Sorry, I don't know the name. But they had hundreds of coffees, and they tested his, and it was the best coffee out of all the tasting. And so they wanted to buy it. They sell this coffee, a cup of coffee, $16 for a cup of coffee, of this Yemen-based coffee. Now, who would pay $16 for a cup of coffee? And there was a very interesting conversation that, like, some fellow walked into the coffee shop and said, well, what, I want a cup of coffee. And they said 16, and he thought they said 6. And he said, no, I don't want to pay 6. He said, I'm sorry, it's not 6, it's 16. What? He said. But eventually he bought that cup of coffee, and then the following day he apologized for arguing. He said, that is the best cup of coffee I've ever had. And now they're able to they are charging 16, well, so probably still are, charging $16 a cup of his Yemen coffee. And now his business is he's not selling it for 16, he's importing it, but they were paying him $50 a pound for this coffee because it was the best coffee. And it's a very interesting story because it's a startup, and all the challenges now of getting a lot of this coffee out of Yemen. Instead of just a few pounds, you want, half a ton or a ton, and that's the interesting, how it all came. But it just came to me, who would pay $16 for a cup of coffee? Well, obviously some people are. Now, that's a totally different mentality, psychological, the things that triggered when you were talking to Yen. Oh, and one other thing, and I'm nitpicking here, Jay said at 97 cents it goes up to $1. We round it to 95 cents, Jay. If it's 98 cents, it goes up to $1. At 97, it goes down to 95 cents if you're paying cash. If you're paying 97 over credit card, it's still 97 cents. But if you're paying cash, 2
cents, not 3 cents.
Yeah. Well, if you pay 98 cents, they round it up to $1. Oh, if you're paying 97 cents, they round it down to 95 if you're paying cash. Only if you're paying cash, because you don't have pennies to give them the extra 2.
Right.
So anyway, sorry, Jay, to be a nitpicker, but that's us old guys. As old guys, I'll buy it for 97 because I saved 5 cents. Anyway. The things you triggered, lots of thoughts, 97 up and down, $16 cups of coffee, how much $100 used to be enormous. I could tell you a story if you want about going to A&W root beer once in 1962. A friend of mine and I had worked all summer, and we had about $900. That was a lot of money in those days. And we were going to travel. So we had taken the money out of the bank, and we had $100 bills and $50 bills. Now that's probably equivalent about to $1,000 bill if you had $1,000 bill. We drove up to A&W, and we ordered burgers, and we gave them a $50 bill, and that's like giving a $500 bill. And they used to come and wait for you at the car, and bring it to you in the car. So we gave them a $50 bill, and she looked at that and said, "Oh, okay," and brought us the change. Now, we had a friend in the other car, and they ordered, and we gave them a $100 bill to pay with. When she saw the $100 bill, she said, "Are you kidding?" And wouldn't take the $100 bill, which was equivalent to giving them $1,000 in those days to buy a burger.
Yeah, you took all their float.
Yeah, so that reminds me of how much $100 was worth in 1962.
Well, I'm just remembering trips to the grocery store. Sometimes there are signs up that they'll say they don't accept $50 bills. So here's a comment by Vivek, I guess. Yeah, pricing tactics are not required when you have convinced someone to buy from you. So I guess Vivek is saying that if somebody wants it badly enough, they'll figure out they'll find the money and they don't care what the price is. It's what I take from that. Roland, thank you for sharing. I find it very difficult to manage both conversation and texting. So, so Ilana, what about you? What happens with you with price? Is there anything go through your mind when you're trying to think about what you want to charge or what you want to pay?
Well, if I'm looking at something that I'm considering buying, especially if it's a digital product, the value is the first thing I want to know about, and determining the value. If you see something that's too cheap, then you think it's crap. Mm-hmm. If you see something that's priced too high, then you think, okay, it's out of my price range. It could be fantastic, but I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So I have bought a few shiny objects, and I normally would buy something with the idea that it's going to be crap. And I know that's a real cynical way of looking at it, but I look at it like, if I buy this and it doesn't turn out to do what it says on the tin, then I'm only out $10. So I kind of weigh it like that. From if I'm charging someone for my services, then I kind of look at what everyone else is charging, and I use that as my benchmark. So,
okay.
And I think you had a woman on here a few weeks back. I can't remember her name. I think she's up in your neck of the woods. She was saying something similar, that she kind of took a look around at what other people were charging for her type of business and charged accordingly. So,
yeah.
But then, again, if you're trying to get clients or something, you may change those prices accordingly as well, which is a different ballgame. But when in looking at digital products, I kind of go in with a mindset. If I'm going to buy something, I kind of go in with it. I'm not going to, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I try not to buy any digital product unless I know it's got a good rating. Lots of people want it. Lots of people have been successful with it, that sort of thing. So I don't really, I'm pretty careful that way. But I do think the price thing is important. If it's too high, then, you're kind of pricing people out.
Well, I mean, in the coaching world and in this world, we talk about when you're starting a business, and you look at who your niche is. I mean, what that niche, what they're able to afford or what they're able to pay or willing to pay comes into play, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I think it's harder with a digital product or a digital presence because there's such a bigger barrier between you and your customer. You don't have that face-to-face where you can prove to the customer, have a conversation with them and say, okay, you've been a customer with me for X number of years. I'll give it to you for this, that, or the other. It's harder to build up a reputation online because of the bigger barrier between you and your customer.
Yeah. I experienced something. Roland, I got you. I haven't forgotten you. But I experienced something recently from my own perspective. There's a membership site called Gaia. And it pops up on Facebook every once in a while. And it's kind of geared toward kind of really archaeological things, spiritual things, UFO things, like a whole gamut of things. And when I looked at that, I mean, every once in a while they'll throw up one free thing on Facebook. And then when you go to find out what it costs, you go, oh my God, I'm not paying that. But I stumbled on something that they just found a mummified being in Peru, and they're going through a whole process of evaluating what it is. And I got so curious about that. I went in again. And so what I discovered, what they did was they offered you 3 months membership at a really, really low price. So the idea was to get you hooked in. And I mean, they keep feeding you little bits about this mummy that with all the research they're doing on it and the tests they're doing and so forth. So that's a little bit in line with you know, my initial reaction to the price that they charge for a membership was way beyond what I thought I was willing to pay. However, the fact that they offered something really 3 months for a really low price, and at the time I knew it was the hook, but my thinking was, well, in that 3 months, maybe I'll find the answer to that, and that's all I'll need. So, I mean, it's a game. It's really a game on there. So that's my experience with getting hooked into the game. So, Roland, you had something, and I hope I haven't taken the conversation away from what you wanted to say.
No, it's right along the same lines. Sorry, my voice is not clear because I've been on view mode for so long. But the concept of offering the breakdown of 3 payments and that stuff, that's totally legitimate, because the point that WeWake made was, when someone really wants your product, the price becomes less important because they have to have your product. So that's focusing on the value, and I like that. When I think of, say, I'm playing an impulse game, and I've got to put my product in front of many people and make it look both worthy of buying and make it affordable. And there are little tricks to the trade, so to speak, to edge them into the buy pocket. But WeWake's comment is basically, if people want your product, they're going to say, send me the bill. The price tag is secondary, because they know they're getting value that they want, they need, and can get it from you, and they're not going to get the same thing somewhere else. That's when the sale is complete.
Yeah.
So there are different kinds of selling going on. There's the lightweight selling, and then there's the very direct, pointed selling when people buy just exactly what they need from you. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I think the higher the price, the longer the sales funnel, or the longer the convincing sales funnel, right? So because you need to, as you say, if someone's convinced that they need that product or service, they're willing to pay. But if it's a higher price tag, then it convinces people. Then you have to convince people, and that's why a lot of digital product sales pages are exuberantly long, right? There's so much content. I mean, people just scroll to the bottom anyways, but it's just they'll look at headings and testimonials and various convincing factors to convince them that, okay, well then I am going to buy this, $200, $400 product. But yeah, the higher the price, the longer the sales cycle.
So
can I sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Dylan.
No, I just want to, I was going to say something similar to what Jay was saying, is that when I'm reading something like that, as you're reading those sales funnels, those landing pages, it's conjuring up an idea of how much you think the product is worth as you're reading it. So the further you go and you're, reading about more bells and whistles, then you're thinking, okay, so it's probably going to be a little more expensive. And then you scroll down to the bottom and it's X price. And that's when if it matches the idea you have in your head of what you think it's worth, then you're more inclined to hit the buy button. But if you get to the bottom after conjuring up your own image of what you think that's worth and they don't match up, then chances are you're not hitting the buy button.
I don't know. I find those landing pages, I just get irritated. When there's a big long landing page and I have to read through all that crap, I usually leave. So
yeah, I usually skim it. I skim it. I'm looking for the guts of it, and then I'm moving on.
there's something called the sideways sales letter now, where it's kind of eliminating this long sales page, and what they've basically done is they've chunked it out, right, to small videos, usually 3 or 4 or 5, between 3 to 5 videos, and it's just a video, right, and it's a sales cycle that goes over the next 4 or 5 days, however many videos you end up having, and each one picks up after the other. And it's other, additional psychological elements, an overview of the problem, right? Do you experience this? Next video is, well, here's some people that have experienced that as well, and they bought this product, and here's how awesome they are now. Next video is, here's how awesome it can be with you. And then the final video is scarcity.
I've got all the secrets.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the scarcity video where, we're going to be taking it down, and you got to buy it within the next so many minutes, like Amazon, right? And I think they're very, very effective sales techniques, because you're exactly right. People get annoyed with sales letters, they're just ridiculously long these days, and it takes a lot of people aren't as convinced. Whereas if they go through that sales process over the next couple of days, you can not only increase the price of your product because of the convincing factors, right? I think it's a better conversion funnel.
So are you suggesting that in that case, if you're just on the first video, that the price might be lower than it is by the time you get to the last video?
The price isn't actually
the other way around.
The price isn't revealed until the final video. It's all, yeah. So the first 2 or 3 videos are really just to storytell about problem, solution, people who are experiencing the solution.
Yeah.
And then the final video is, all right, well, so now that you've seen all the amazing things, here's why you need to get this, and here's the price. And it's going to go away within a certain time period.
And then,
Jay, do you know anyone that's actually tested that out? Oh,
yes.
Right. Okay. You've tested it. Okay.
Yeah. It's very effective. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done it for physical products for clients, and I've done it for digital products for myself.
That's worth our thinking about. So you said problem, separate videos, problem, solution, the people who have experienced the solution, and then here's what you could have at this price.
You can experience what they're experiencing too if you buy this product.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Now that can actually be carried out in an email series, instead of the whole sideways sale letter is part of an email marketing funnel, but also it can be done without video. It can be done just with written form emails, although it's way more effective with video, because then people don't have to read. People can just listen and be convinced, like a conversation, like a sales conversation.
Right. So I see Roland has another of Vivek's comments. How does the law of diffusion play out when thinking of pricing? Strategy, reference Simon Sinek's famous talk. How does the law of diffusion play out when thinking of pricing strategy? Anybody?
I'm not sure it does.
I haven't even heard of that.
No idea who Simon Sinek is, and never heard law of diffusion.
By golly.
Well, I think Roland knows about Simon Sinek, so can you comment, Roland?
Yeah, somewhat. He's one of my current heroes in internet information. I wouldn't call him a marketer, but he is seriously someone to listen to. And he takes the world of marketing right now and makes sense to me, because you guys know how I feel about marketing. and he nails it and says basically, here's the skinny. So when he talks about the law of diffusion is that something really important could come along, and WeWake, please comment and let me know if I'm even on the right track, because I'm not sure it applies here, but it may. But the law of diffusion basically indicates that when something important comes along, it'll take some time to diffuse out into popular use. So you have the early innovators. The earliest people are the innovators, people that start something, start a movement, come out with something just brilliant. They say, this is it. And then people see that, this is the ultimate shiny object that actually works and that is actually of value. And then what happens is, after a period of time, as it diffuses into the public and commonality, it becomes a trend. But the early, maybe 16% or so of the people who opt in, they're known as the early adopters. So we are early adopters of the live streaming video age, and we feel it's going to come on. But you know how long we've studied live streaming for years now, but we are considered early adopters. Therefore, the indication is that it's going to take a few more years before it becomes commonplace, and that the masses and the majority of adopters start to step into it. So he was wanting to apply this concept and theory and say, how does this apply to pricing strategies? So I'm not sure how it does, but that's
once it becomes when it's become mainstream, then I guess the price goes down. I mean, it's how rare something is compared to how desirable it is that determines the price, right?
Very much. And the other thing is whether or not it's actually a sincere trend, or if it's a wave of impulse buy. If it's just a sales trend, like boy, my throat's really fucked up. Sorry, messed up. But the law of diffusion is really talking about the major movements of trends, and I don't know that it applies to sales pricing, because that's so instantaneously buy now, pushy stuff. Yes. And there are various levels of that. It's like, if you're sincere about something and you're selling something at a higher price and you got to stick to your guns and sell it, that's a different sales strategy than selling something under $50 that you want to sell thousands or millions of. The strategy is totally different. So I'm not sure it applies, WeWake.
Oh dear. Well, and
can I close on something here? Just
yes.
I looking at the time. I think there's a tipping point between like thinking about all this psychological elements to pricing and doing all the research and what is right, what isn't right, and this stuff. And there's a tipping point where you just have to kind of stop researching it and I'm going to say waffling over it and just do it, Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Right? I mean, there's so many little elements like this whatever Vivek was saying, this law of diffusion and psychology of pricing with 7s, 5s, 9s, and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's a point where you can kind of go, okay, well, I have enough information. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a try. Maybe I'll add some of these psychological elements to it. Maybe I won't, but it's just, I find that people tend to overanalyze so much that it's actually holding people back from actually creating the product or selling the product or the service, right? Because they're waffling over, should I do this? Should I use this color? Should I use that color? Should I, what color should the button be? And it just, it stops people in their tracks. And I think, I see this over and over again. I see over-analyzation, and it goes beyond just, pricing, the psychological part of pricing. It goes beyond that with like colors of the website and should I use video in my sales funnel? Should I use content or a combination of both? Should I use long form sales, short form, sideways sale letter, and so on and so forth, where they just kind of go, and they just freeze and stop, right? And I think it's a very common disease that people have, right? So
I think, Jay, what we need to end on is the phrase, just do the testing. So I have an idea for next time, because as you were saying that, that's what rolled into my mind. And the next thing that rolled into my mind was, I'm not sure I would know where to begin on how to test something. So maybe that could be something we could talk about next time. If that sounds interesting to other people. So I want to thank everyone, and I'm going to screen sharing. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next Tuesday. And Roland, if you care to put the music on.